Elisa Sanders had never imagined that dying of thirst would feel so quiet. The sandstorm had swallowed the convoy whole, turning the sky into a wall of amber fury that erased the horizon, the road, even the sound of her own voice. Now, crouched behind a rock with her scarf pressed against her nose and mouth, she watched her expensive scientific equipment disappear beneath dunes that moved like living things. 28 years old, a biologist with 2 published papers on reproductive genetics, and she was about to become a footnote in a desert that didn't care about her resume. The wind screamed. Sand invaded her eyes, her lungs, her hope. Then, through the ochre chaos, a shadow emerged. Tall, dark, impossibly steady. A horse. A rider wrapped in black robes that seemed woven from the storm itself. He dismounted with the precision of someone who had never known hesitation, his face hidden beneath a turban stained gold by dust. He didn't ask if she needed help. He simply pulled her up with one gloved hand, his grip firm enough to feel like an order, and guided her toward the animal. "Hold on," he said in English sharpened by authority. Elisa obeyed because survival left no room for pride. They rode through the storm as if it were nothing more than an inconvenience, his body a wall between her and the desert's rage. When they finally reached a protected camp, canvas tents anchored by iron and tradition, he lowered her to the ground without ceremony. She coughed, spat sand, and looked up. His turban had slipped just enough to reveal dark eyes that assessed her the way a jeweler examines a stone, clinically, without warmth. "You're the American biologist," he said. Not a question. Elisa Sanders. Her voice was raw. "And you are?" A pause, then with the weight of a title that didn't need to be earned. "Prince Malik Al-Azhar." The name hit her like a second storm. The palace rose from the desert like a fever dream sculpted in sandstone and gold. Elisa stood at the edge of the vast courtyard, watching fountains spill water as if the earth itself had forgotten it was supposed to be dry. Gardens bloomed in geometric defiance of nature, roses, jasmine, date palms heavy with fruit. Somewhere in the distance a falcon cried. This was where she would spend the next 6 months. A servant appeared, silent as a shadow, and led her through corridors lined with tiles that told stories she couldn't read. Her quarters were larger than her entire apartment in Boston. A bed draped in silk, a balcony overlooking the desert, and a bathroom with a tub deep enough to drown in. She dropped her bag and exhaled. The door opened without a knock. Malik entered, as if the concept of privacy was a foreign custom he'd chosen not to adopt. He'd traded the storm-worn robes for white linen edged in gold thread, his hair still damp from washing, his expression unreadable. "The laboratory is ready," he said. "I'll show you tomorrow. You don't need to personally. I decide what I need to do." The words were flat, factual, and somehow more cutting than cruelty. Elisa felt her jaw tighten. "Of course, Your Highness." He studied her for a moment, and she couldn't tell if he was annoyed or intrigued. "You'll address me as Malik when we're alone," he said. "Formality wastes time. And what should I call you when you're being insufferable?" The silence that followed was so complete, she could hear her own heartbeat. Then, impossibly, the corner of his mouth twitched. "You're bold for someone who nearly died in my desert." "Your desert saved me," she shot back. "You just happened to be riding through it." He turned toward the door and she thought she'd crossed a line. But before leaving, he glanced over his shoulder. "Dinner is at sunset. Don't be late." The conservation center was a cathedral of glass and steel planted in the sand like an act of rebellion. Inside, climate-controlled enclosures housed peregrine falcons with eyes like polished bronze, Arabian oryx moving with the grace of ghosts, and horses whose bloodlines stretched back centuries. Elisa walked through the space with her fingers trailing along steel tables, her mind already calculating breeding cycles and genetic diversity protocols. Malik followed 2 steps behind, his presence heavy as a storm cloud. "This is more than I expected," she admitted. "I don't invest in half measures." She turned. "Why falcons? Why oryx? There are a dozen other species that need help." "Because they belong here," he said simply. "And what belongs here deserves to survive." There was something in his voice, something almost fragile beneath the steel, that made her pause. "And the horses?" she pressed. His gaze shifted toward the stables visible through the glass. "Those are personal." Before she could ask more, a commotion erupted near the falcon enclosures. One of the birds had escaped its perch and was now circling the laboratory, shrieking. A young assistant stood frozen, clutching a tablet that the bird seemed determined to claim as a toy. "Don't move!" Elisa shouted, but Malik was already moving. He raised one gloved arm with practiced ease, and the falcon, wild, furious, untrusting, circled twice before landing on his wrist as if coming home. The room exhaled. Elisa stared. "How did you—" "I was raised with them," Malik said, stroking the bird's chest with 2 fingers. "They respond to certainty, not fear." "And people?" she asked before she could stop herself. "Do they respond the same way?" His eyes met hers, and for the first time she saw something crack in his armor. People are harder to predict. The days became a rhythm. Mornings in the lab, afternoons in the field, evenings on the terrace where the sky turned violet, and the stars emerged like punctuation marks in a story she was only beginning to understand. Malik visited the center daily, always under the pretense of reviewing reports that could have been emailed. "Your hormone analysis on the oryx is incomplete," he said one afternoon, standing too close to her workstation. "It's preliminary," Elisa replied without looking up. "I'm waiting for the second blood draw. You should cross-reference with the baseline from last year." "I did." "Then why isn't it in the report?" She finally turned. "Because you're reading the summary, not the appendix." He blinked. Then, to her surprise, he smiled. A real smile, brief as lightning. "You don't like being questioned. I don't like being micromanaged by someone who's pretending to care about oryx hormones." The air between them shifted. "What makes you think I'm pretending?" "Because," she said, holding his gaze, "you've asked me the same question 3 times this week, and each time you already knew the answer." Malik leaned against the table, arms crossed. "Maybe I like hearing you defend your work. Or maybe you're bored. I'm never bored when you're in the room." The words hung there, too honest to be retracted. Elisa felt her pulse quicken. She should say something sharp, something that would reset the boundaries they were quietly dismantling. Instead, she asked, "Why did you really fund this project?" Malik's expression shuddered. "Because it needed to be done." "That's not an answer." "It's the only one you're getting today." He left before she could press further, but the question lingered like smoke. Rashid Al-Tayeb had served 3 generations of the Al-Azhar family, and in all that time he had never seen the prince look at anyone the way he looked at the American scientist. It wasn't love. Not yet. It was something more dangerous. Possibility. Rashid found Malik in the stables that evening, brushing a black mare whose coat gleamed like oil. "You're spending a great deal of time at the conservation center," Rashid observed. "It's my project. It's Dr. Sanders' project. You're simply funding it." Malik's hand stilled. "What's your point?" "My point," Rashid said carefully, "is that the council has begun to notice, and Lady Amira arrives next week. The engagement. Malik had agreed to it 6 months ago in a moment of resignation disguised as duty. Amira Al-Farsi was beautiful, educated, politically connected, and utterly uninterested in anything beyond power. She was also exactly what the kingdom expected. "The engagement is strategic," Malik said flatly, "and Dr. Sanders is none of your concern." Rashid stepped closer. "She is when she makes you forget why you accepted that engagement in the first place." Malik turned, his jaw tight. "You want me to marry a woman I don't love for the sake of water rights and tribal alliances? I want you to lead this kingdom with your head, not your heart. And if I told you my heart is already compromised?" The admission hung between them like a confession. Rashid sighed. "Then you'd better decide which is stronger, your duty to this kingdom, or your desire for a woman who will leave in 6 months." Malik didn't answer. But that night, alone on the terrace beneath a sky too vast to bear, he allowed himself to imagine a different future. And for the first time in 10 years, he felt something close to hope. Lady Amira Al-Farsi arrived in a convoy of black SUVs that seemed designed to announce importance. She stepped out wearing a cream abaya embroidered with gold thread, her face a portrait of controlled elegance, her smile sharp enough to cut glass. Elisa watched from the lab window as Malik greeted her with the formal stiffness of someone performing a role. "That's the fiancé?" one of the assistants whispered. "Apparently." Elisa turned back to her microscope. but the image of Malik bowing his head to kiss Amira's hand remained burned into her retinas. She told herself it didn't matter. She told herself she was here for the work. She told herself love had no place in a 6-month contract. But when Amira appeared at the lab 2 days later, flanked by aides and trailing expensive perfume, Elisa knew she'd been lying to herself. "So this is where the magic happens," Amira said, her English flawless and faintly mocking. "I've heard so much about the brilliant American scientist." "Dr. Sanders," Elisa corrected. "Of course, Dr. Sanders." Amira's gaze swept the lab like a general surveying conquered territory. "Malik speaks very highly of your work. That's kind of him." "Kind," Amira repeated, tasting the word. "Yes, he can be kind, especially to temporary additions." The emphasis was surgical. Elisa forced a smile. "Is there something I can help you with, Lady Amira?" "Actually, yes. I'm curious, what is it about falcons and horses that requires so much of my fiancé's personal attention?" "You'd have to ask him." "I'm asking you." The air crackled. Elisa met her gaze. "Prince Malik is deeply invested in preserving his country's heritage. The species we're working with are culturally and ecologically significant. And you? What's your investment?" "Science, conservation, doing my job." Amira stepped closer, her voice dropping. "Let me be clear, Dr. Sanders. You're a consultant, a guest. And guests, no matter how brilliant, eventually go home. I'm aware of my contract terms." "Good. Then we understand each other." Amira left, her aides trailing like shadows. Elisa stood alone in the lab, her hands shaking with rage she couldn't afford to show. The terrace had become their unspoken refuge, the place where protocols softened and truths could breathe. Malik found Elisa there that night, standing at the edge with her arms wrapped around herself. "You met Amira," he said. "She made quite an impression." He stood beside her, close enough that their shoulders almost touched. "She's not what I would have chosen. But you chose her anyway. I agreed to a marriage that benefits the kingdom. There's a difference." Elisa turned. "Is there?" His eyes, dark and unreadable, searched hers. "Do you want the truth? I wouldn't ask for anything else." Malik exhaled, and the sound carried years of weight. 10 years ago, I had a riding accident. The doctors said it left me sterile. No children, no heir. In this kingdom, that's not just personal failure. It's political catastrophe. Elisa's breath caught. "Amira's family controls the western water sources," he continued. "The marriage stabilizes that alliance and gives the council something to focus on besides my inability to produce a successor." "Have you been tested recently?" she asked, her scientific mind overriding her shock. "Why would I?" 3 specialists confirmed it. 10 years ago. Medicine evolves, Malik. Trauma-induced infertility can sometimes reverse, especially if... "Don't," he interrupted, his voice rough. "Don't give me hope I can't afford." She stepped closer, her hand finding his. "What if it's not hope? What if it's science?" He looked at their joined hands as if they were evidence of a crime he was about to commit. "And if you're wrong, then we'll know." "But what if I'm right?" The silence stretched, fragile and electric. Finally, Malik nodded. "Arrange the test. Quietly." "I will." He lifted her hand to his lips. Not a kiss, but a promise pressed against her knuckles. "You're dangerous, Dr. Sanders." "So are you, Your Highness." The sabotage came without warning. Elisa arrived at the lab to find glass shattered, samples destroyed, reports scattered. A royal necklace lay planted among her belongings. The perfect trap. Security footage showed her holding it. No context, just guilt. The council convened within hours. "The evidence is clear," Elder Nasir declared. "The American has betrayed us." "I didn't take anything," Elisa said steadily. "Someone set me up." "The camera doesn't lie," Amira interjected with false sympathy. "I'm not a thief." Elisa's eyes found Malik's. "And you know it." Malik said nothing. "Contract terminated," Elder Karim announced. "Immediate deportation." Elisa looked at Malik one last time, searching for the man who'd trusted her. She saw only a prince choosing duty. "I hope your kingdom was worth it," she said, voice breaking. She was escorted out, and Malik, alone with his cowardice, realized he'd destroyed the only real thing he'd ever had. Rashid had lived long enough to recognize injustice. He began investigating immediately. Old servants who'd seen Amira near the lab, security gaps in the footage. The necklace reported missing weeks before Elisa's arrival. The breakthrough came from Layla, a young maid. She'd overheard Amira on the phone, laughing about her lover Tariq and their plan to pass off his child as Malik's heir. Rashid compiled everything: witness statements, recovered footage, bank transfers to Tariq, deleted messages. 5 days later, he placed the dossier on Malik's desk. "Read it," Rashid said. "Then decide if you're the man I raised or the coward you've become." Malik read. With each page, his walls crumbled. Where is she? Airport, 2 hours before her connecting flight. Malik drove himself, breaking every limit, his mind looping through every moment he'd failed her. He found her at gate 12, spine straight despite exhaustion. "Elisa." She looked up, hope flaring, then dying. "Don't make this harder." He crossed to her and dropped to his knees, in front of security, travelers, the watching world. "I was a coward," he said, voice breaking. "I chose protocol over truth. I let them take you because I was afraid of how much I needed you." Tears spilled down her face. "You have every right to walk away. But before you go, the test results came back. You were right. I'm not sterile. And Amira sabotaged everything. Rashid has proof. She planned to pass off another man's child as mine." Her hand covered her mouth. "I love you," he continued. "Not because you gave me hope of an heir, but because you're the only person who's ever seen me as a man instead of a crown. This kingdom needs someone brave enough to call me on my failures. That's you." The terminal had gone silent. She touched his face. "Get up." He stood, uncertain. "If I stay, I'm not some consultant. Not a secret. Not a compromise. You're everything," he swore. "Then prove it." He kissed her there, with 100 phones recording, and it felt like the first honest thing he'd done in years. The council chamber held 15 elders and centuries of judgment. Malik entered with Elisa. Amira stood opposite in white silk, playing wounded innocence. "This is theater," Amira said. "He's voiding our engagement for infatuation." Malik placed the dossier on the table. "Elder Karim, evidence of sabotage, theft, and conspiracy." Karim read. Footage of Amira destroying the lab. Bank transfers to Tariq al-Mansour. Then Rashid played audio, Amira's voice bright with malice. "The American is gone. I'll be carrying Tariq's child. No one will question it. I get the crown." Silence fell like a blade. "You plan to deceive us," Elder Nasir said, disgusted. "Pass off another man's child as heir." Amira's mask shattered. "He couldn't give me children. What was I supposed to do?" "Honor the truth," Malik said coldly. Karim stood. "The engagement is dissolved. You leave within 48 hours. Amira screamed as she was led out. Karim turned to Elisa. "Dr. Sanders, you were wronged. We invite you to continue with full autonomy." "I'll stay," Elisa said. "But I keep my apartment and career. I stay by choice, not obligation." Malik smiled. "Impossible." Karim chuckled. "Prince Malik, you have a proposal to make." Malik took her hands. "I planned this for the dunes, under stars. But Elisa Sanders, you challenged me, saved me, loved me when I didn't deserve it. Will you marry me?" She kissed him. "Yes." 2 months later, the gardens transformed. Elisa wore white lace with gold embroidery and jasmine. Malik wore ancestral robes. Rashid officiated with tears. Karim blessed them. Musicians merged cultures. Oud and violin, incense and roses. The kingdom cheered genuinely. 6 months passed. Elisa revolutionized conservation, published papers, trained scientists. Malik learned to lead with heart. They built something real. Then one morning, Elisa woke nauseous. Again and again. On the 4th morning, she stared at 2 pink lines. She found Malik on the terrace. "Remember when you said you couldn't have children?" Understanding dawned in his eyes. "You're pregnant." He stood slowly, staring at the test, at her, at the horizon. Then he pulled her close and wept, not from grief, but joy so pure it felt like rebirth. "We're having a baby," he whispered. The heir he'd thought impossible was coming. Not as duty, but as proof. When love fights through pride and protocol, Even the desert blooms,